Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're looking at something kind of unexpected, the power of questions.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, we were given this talk by Pablo Marsal called The Art of Asking Questions.
Mm-hmm.
And, first I thought, okay, this is going to be like how to, ask better questions in a meeting or in an interview or something like that.
How to get the information you want.
Right. But it turns out it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, he goes way beyond just the mechanics of asking questions.
No.
It's more about how the questions we ask and even the ones we avoid really reveal who we are.
It's like they're a window into our
values, our beliefs, even our fears.
Exactly. So like right off the bat, Marsal connects the dots between the types of questions we ask and our, maturity level.
Oh, yeah. He gives a great example about finances, like someone who's focused on making a quick 10 grand versus someone who's asking about building $1 billion empire.
Totally different mindsets, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their questions reveal where they are financially, but also in terms of their overall ambition and vision.
And it's not just about money either. Like think about the questions we ask in our relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Or about our careers or even our health. They all point to where we are mentally and emotionally.
It's like each question is a little self-diagnosis.
Okay, so that's kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But then Marsal throws in this curveball. He says our brains are actually wired to avoid asking questions.
It's true. We'd rather jump to affirmations or easy answers instead of facing the unknown.
So we're programmed to avoid good questions. Why is that?
Well, think about it. Asking a really difficult question takes mental effort. It could lead to uncomfortable conversations, challenge our beliefs, or even force us to change.
And our brains prefer the easy route.
Exactly. They're great at conserving energy. So avoiding those tough questions just feels easier.
Okay, so how do we break free from this answer-first mentality?
Well, Marsal talks about directing questions towards ourselves, a higher power, and others. But he really emphasizes starting with self-reflection.
So looking inward.
Exactly, because honestly, most of the answers we're searching for are already within us.
It's that classic know thyself idea.
Right. Asking those tough questions internally forces us to examine our motivations, beliefs, and fears.
Like holding up a mirror to our subconscious.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be pretty scary.
Yeah, for sure. But what if we don't even know what questions to ask ourselves?
That's where Marsal gets really interesting. He suggests asking those tough questions as if they're about someone else.
Someone else.
Yeah, like a hypothetical third person. He says it helps us bypass our ego's defenses.
So instead of asking myself, am I happy? I'd ask,
Is my friend happy?
and that somehow makes a difference.
It can. Because we're often more objective when we're thinking about someone else's situation.
Sure.
So our brain lets its guard down, and suddenly those hidden desires or solutions start to surface.
That's a really clever technique. You got to try that.
It's worth a shot. And speaking of techniques, Marsal also dives into the importance of asking the right type of question. He highlights the power of something that seems counterintuitive at first, closed questions.
Closed questions? You mean like those yes or no type questions?
Exactly. We're always told open-ended questions lead to richer conversations. But Marsal points out that with open questions, our brains tend to gravitate towards easy answers.
He uses the example, are you happy?
Right. It's so easy to just say yes and move on, even if it's not entirely true.
So how do closed questions help us dig deeper?
Well, think about the 5 whys technique. By asking a series of closed questions like why, after every answer, you're forced to peel back the layers until you reach the root cause of an issue or belief.
It's like investigative journalism for your own life.
Exactly. You keep asking why until you get to the heart of the matter.
I like that. And Marsal actually has this amazing onstage example with an audience member named Davi, where he demonstrates this technique in action.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example. It's like a master class in reading between the lines.
So he asks Davi about his goals, his relationships, his mindset.
Right. And by analyzing Davi's responses, his hesitations, even his body language, he uncovers a deeper story than what Davi's saying on the surface.
Wow, so it's like he's decoding Davi's subconscious.
In a way, yeah. And it's fascinating to see how those insights start to unfold.
Yeah, and what's interesting is Davi presents himself as this ambitious guy, wants to make $1 million in 2 years.
Classic entrepreneur type.
Right. But as Marsal digs deeper with his questions, it becomes clear that Davi doesn't really have a solid plan.
So more like wishful thinking than actual strategy.
Exactly. He's relying more on positive thinking than taking concrete actions.
And Marsal points out that Davi is surrounded by people who haven't achieved the kind of success he's aiming for.
Yeah, which can be a real problem because it creates this limiting belief system.
Like if no one around you has done it, can you even believe it's possible?
Right, and that's why it's so important to be intentional about who you surround yourself with.
People who inspire you, who challenge you to grow.
Exactly. Find those mentors and role models who have already achieved what you're striving for.
So back to Davi. There's this really powerful moment when Marcel asks about his relationship with his parents.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And you can see Davi struggling. His voice cracks. He gets emotional. It's clear there's some unresolved pain there.
And Marcel gently points out how those past experiences, especially those early relationships with family, can really impact our present beliefs and behaviors.
Sometimes those unaddressed wounds can hold us back without us even realizing it.
So it's not just about asking questions about our goals and our plans, but also about understanding where those desires and those fears come from.
Right. It's about getting to the root of who we are.
This whole conversation really highlights Marcel's emphasis on moving beyond motivation to what he calls activation.
He's not a fan of traditional motivational speaking.
Yeah, he says it often leads to temporary inspiration rather than lasting change.
Exactly. He's advocating for a more empowering approach where we use questions to spark action and take ownership of our growth.
It's not about waiting for someone to motivate us. It's about asking ourselves the questions that ignite our own inner drive.
And he's not just talking the talk. He shares his personal example of running marathons.
Something he initially hated.
Yeah. But he used it as a challenge to push himself beyond his perceived limitations.
And that's really what it's all about, right? Pushing ourselves to grow, even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And asking ourselves how we can make things happen instead of doubting whether we can.
So from self-reflection to taking action, Marcel also gets into some practical applications of this question-based approach, particularly in business.
Yeah, he talks about the 5 key dates of a company.
Opening, break-even point, payback, hiring a CEO, and legacy.
Right. And he uses those milestones to emphasize the importance of continuous growth and evolution.
It's like instead of just setting a goal, we should be thinking about the key steps along the way and asking ourselves the right questions to get there.
Exactly. Like, what skills do I need to learn? Who do I need to connect with? What actions do I need to take?
It's about constantly challenging ourselves to level up.
And that's where the power of questions really shines. It's about using them as a tool for continuous improvement.
This whole deep dive has really got me thinking about the questions I ask myself and the ones I avoid.
Me too. It's so easy to get caught up in our routines and our assumptions.
But Marcel reminds us that it takes courage to ask those tough questions.
To confront uncomfortable truths, to challenge the status quo.
It's about being willing to grow and to change.
And it's not just about asking the right questions, but also about actively listening to the answers.
Paying attention to what people are saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Exactly. It's about being present, being open-minded, and recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
What I found really fascinating was Marcel's approach to reading between the lines.
Yeah, observing those subtle cues that often reveal more than words ever could.
It's like becoming a detective of human behavior.
Uncovering the hidden motivations and underlying narratives that shape our interactions.
And this ties back to his point about asking the right questions to the right people.
It's about being strategic with our inquiries, understanding that different people hold different pieces of the puzzle.
Sometimes we need to direct those questions inward. Sometimes we need guidance from a mentor or an advisor, and sometimes those valuable insights come from our peers or colleagues.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to have all the answers ourselves, and that seeking out diverse perspectives can really enrich our understanding.
Like building a network of support and knowledge.
Right. And it's also about recognizing that not everyone is willing or able to answer our questions honestly or effectively.
Sometimes the most valuable insights come from those who challenge our assumptions or offer a completely different point of view.
It's about surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us, challenge us, and encourage us to keep asking those tough questions.
It's about creating a culture of learning and development.
And not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us.
Marcel talks about the importance of creating environments where questions are welcomed, curiosity is valued, and everyone feels safe to contribute their ideas.
He's challenging those traditional hierarchical structures.
Arguing that the most innovative and successful organizations are those that embrace a more collaborative and question-driven approach.
It's about fostering an environment where people feel comfortable asking why, challenging assumptions, and experimenting with new ideas.
And this goes beyond just the workplace. It's about applying that same curiosity and that same willingness to question to every aspect of our lives.
Our relationships, our communities, even our world.
Marcel reminds us that the questions we ask can have a ripple effect impacting the world around us.
It's like he's saying our questions aren't just personal inquiries, they're acts of social responsibility.
They have the power to spark dialogue, raise awareness, and inspire collective action.
He's challenging us to use our voices to advocate for positive change, to question the status quo, and to contribute to creating a more just and equitable world for everyone.
It's inspiring to think about the power a simple question can hold. Wow, it's amazing to think that something as simple as asking a question can have such a profound impact.
It really makes you realize how much power we have to shape our own lives and the world around us just by choosing to ask the right questions.
That's like Marcel said, our questions aren't just personal inquiries, they're acts of social responsibility.
And they can be catalysts for real change.
This whole deep dive has really been eye-opening. I feel like I'm looking at the world in a new way.
Me too. It's like we've unlocked a secret weapon.
The power of inquiry.
Exactly. And the best part is it's a weapon we can all use.
So for our listener out there, what would you say is the most important takeaway from this exploration of the art of asking questions?
I think the most crucial thing is to remember the power of self-reflection. Taking the time to ask ourselves those tough questions, being honest with our answers, and having the courage to act on what we discover.
It's like that old saying, know thyself.
Right. But it's more than just knowing. It's about using that knowledge to create the life we want.
And it's not a one-time thing. It's about making self-reflection a habit.
Maybe that looks like journaling or meditating or just taking a few minutes each day to really sit with ourselves and ask those powerful questions.
So for you listening right now, we challenge you to think about one question you need to ask yourself. A question that could unlock the next level in your life.
Don't be afraid to dig deep, to get uncomfortable.
Because that's where the real growth happens.
The answers are waiting for you. You just have to ask the right questions.
This deep dive has been all about the art of asking questions. And now it's your turn. Go ahead, ask that question, and then listen. You might be surprised by what you discover.